we're going to talk more specifically about how to monetize in the modern era. You know, the modern era here, we're talking about building cloud applications that are not just going to be deployed at browser users, but very good chance you're going to want to target the smart endpoint devices that are going out there more and more. So how are you going to monetize in an environment that consists of a cloud-based service on the back end and lots of mobile devices and multiple mobile platforms? And we're going to look at it from the standpoint of a product manager, really. So we're going to start out talking about what's happened in the market. There's been a dramatic change in endpoint device market share over the last 5 to 6 years. You have to kind of see the chart and really internalize the meaning of the chart. We want to do that. And then we want to go through the different approaches to monetizing if you're building a mobile app and you have a cloud back end. There are all sorts of new and creative monetization methods that are being utilized, a lot in the consumer space, some in the enterprise space. And then I'm going to go through about 4 companies, 3 that are up and running, 1 that's an early stage company, and look at their different approaches to cloud plus mobile monetization, give you some very specific cases. I want to try to get through this with enough time for you guys to pitch me some questions too. So I'm going to try to save at least 5 to 10 minutes at the end so we can have dialogue and discussion and engagement. Okay, so this is a chart to look at and really internalize in your mind, because I think if you're going to make an investment presently in building a cloud app and you're targeting a big part of the enterprise or consumer market, especially the consumer market, you have to see that the era of Windows on Intel sort of dominating the smart endpoint device market is over. And starting from about 2006, 2007, first the iPad, iOS, iPhone platform, and then Android have grabbed a huge amount of share to the point now where iOS, iPad, and Android have 65% of the market. Now, the numbers are not quite like this in the enterprise space, but if you combine enterprise and consumer, this is what the new world reality looks like. So if you're building in the cloud, you have to account for the fact that this is the new reality. It's even more cross-platform than it ever has been. And this is a chart that came out late last year from Kleiner Perkins, a very interesting chart. It shows the global market share. It calls them personal computing platforms. I like the term smart endpoint devices. Here we're talking about anything from a laptop or a desktop to an Android device like a Galaxy S3 that has a powerful processor, has a browser, has lots of native apps on it. That's what we're talking about here. There's been an evolution in the way customers buy software and the way vendors offer software. You know, so prior to say the year 2000, there really was only one commercial model for software. You bought software via an on-premise license. There wasn't really per se a large consumer market in this stage of the development of our business. You bought per seat, you bought per server, you paid for annual maintenance and support. You got a release every year, maybe a release every 2 years. And depending upon what it was you were buying, you might be into implementing that software over a year or 2 years or 3 years. And the cost of your implementation in many cases vastly exceeded what you paid for the licensed software. The software as a service subscription business grew up around some of the very successful SaaS companies that were very early in that market, like Salesforce and others, NetSuite. And the basic approach for some SaaS companies is the freemium model. So in the freemium model, you see, you know, you're a company and you have users, and as a company, you give the users this free software. You allow them to access it very easily. They start using your software. You get presence and mind share with a target customer base. And then the company turns around later and offers those users some sort of better version, some sort of improved service, some sort of improved capability to try to elicit the users to pay, or the using organization to pay. So this freemium model is very common, very popular, and it characterized a lot of companies that quickly grabbed big customer bases, a lot of traffic, a lot of activity. The current era I would call cloud plus mobile is even more complicated. So nowadays, the popularity of app stores in the B2C place is huge. Everybody that's building mobile apps is looking at getting those mobile apps in either the Google Play Store or the Apple iTunes App Store. Mobile advertising and advertising models are another way to potentially get revenue. And then there's the model that's become so popular in the gaming space for mobile, what's called the in-app purchase. And you have in-app purchases going on in gaming apps nowadays for points, widgets, gold coins, all sorts of different types of currencies that are specific to the gaming market. You have mobile commerce, and of course you can still charge on a SaaS subscription basis per month. So these are the way that software companies have evolved and how they're getting revenue in the last several years. In the consumer space, in the B2C space, you can see these two charts show very clearly that it's in-app purchases that are driving a lot of the revenue in the B2C space for mobile. So you see on the chart on the far left, it's a very high percentage of revenue coming from mobile B2C, from in-app purchases. And the chart on the right shows that most of that in-app purchase revenue for mobile is coming from gaming or gaming/entertainment. If we look across all of this smart endpoint market to try to understand how much revenue can you get per endpoint device from the software, you see a curve that looks, or a chart that looks something like this. Android, Windows Phone, and iPhone, the average prices are $1 or $2. And that factors in things like all of the free mobile apps plus the paid mobile apps. So at the very low end of the, if you go into the Apple App Store, you'll find free apps. We talked about a free app for Netflix last night at dinner, for example. You start to move up the curve. When you get into iPad, apps cost a little bit more. There's an app store for Windows. You can buy Windows app there. If you look at Microsoft Office, average selling price, it's probably $40 to $60 per seat. That's the license charge. You go all the way up, and this is pretty much on an annual basis, to the Salesforce model, which is anywhere from $40 to $60 per user per month, almost $500 a year. That's the high end. So here I'm spreading all the revenue you can get from the B2C and B2B space across all these platforms, and it gives you an idea. Where can you build the highest revenue per seat or per user, and which part of this market is at the low end? So it's an interesting chart. What has happened in the enterprise space is the concept of app stores has been proposed as a solution for enterprises to deal with this huge growth in mobile devices and tablet devices and smartphones. So enterprises are looking at ways of mobilizing business processes and delivering applications to mobile devices. And when they look at that, they have a lot of interesting choices. One model is every vendor has an app store. So you see on the far left one example of a small vendor who's developed the concept of an app store. In the middle, you have a very large vendor like SAP, who has introduced the SAP Store for mobile apps. And then you even have customizations of Apple's iTunes App Store specific to geographic parts of the world. So there really are quite a lot of different visions for how enterprises are going to distribute mobile applications right now. Gartner has some numbers out there talking about adoption of app stores in the enterprise space. I'm not sure that we would necessarily even call what a lot of enterprises are already doing to manage their mobile apps an app store. I think it's more like a mobile application management solution. And at the very high end, maybe their enterprises will implement some kind of concept of app stores. But in reality, there's a set of needs or complexity for an enterprise in distributing mobile apps to different types of users versus cost. And certainly not a lot of medium-sized businesses are going to run out and get themselves involved in a very sophisticated mobile app store for the 400 or 1,000 users that they want to roll 2 mobile apps out to. Don't think that's going to happen at all. It's more like they need to deal with certain specific needs to roll out mobile apps to their enterprise employees. some of whom have bring your own devices, some of whom are being issued devices now by the corporation. They need to install and uninstall. They need to manage user rights. So they might have one department that they want to use finance mobile apps, but no other department. They have mobile device management scenarios. If the device is lost or stolen, they need to control that. They need to enforce password management on the device, update versions. Goes all the way up to what you see, being done by the high-end models, the B2C app stores from Apple and from Google. So the enterprise market is not, from my standpoint, necessarily going to be a market that's going to adopt this whole full-blown app store model. They don't need it in a lot of parts of the enterprise space. And I think they're looking to build exactly what they do need to manage mobile users and mobile applications. If you are inside an organization making a major investment in mobile and you have a cloud back end, you definitely are dealing with the question of how am I going to monetize this mobile investment. Clearly your CEO cares about that, your CFO cares about that. You have to put a certain amount of investment in, maybe to build a new native application or to modify an existing HTML application to support mobile. And what do you want to do? What kind of monetization model do you want to adopt? Do you want to be disruptive with your pricing? Do you want to deliver mobile as a capability in your subscription model for free so that it just strengthens your subscription model? You have a lot of questions like that to look at. And I think that you can actually really think broadly about this question. So if you're looking at creating a mobile monetization model in either the enterprise space or the consumer mobile space, you can look at everything for pricing, from usage-based pricing to freemium, an existing SaaS subscription model, to trying to sell advertising into your app. We've built several apps at SoftServe which incorporate advertising widgets and which are delivered advertising on a regular basis. You can use proximity information, location information, geofencing information. All of these models are available to you. And there's no reason why in-app purchases need to be the exclusive province of the B2C gaming space. Certainly, if you're in the enterprise mobile space, you can look at doing in-app purchases of new functionality and new capability as a mobile monetization strategy. Once you have users and you have the larger your user base grows and the more you know about your users, the easier it is to create new capabilities, new versions of that app, and offer it to that target customer base, whom you should know really, really well once they're on your mobile app. So the thought here is drive some of the innovations in business to consumer into the mobile enterprise market. That's a good approach because a lot of your enterprise customers are bring your own device customers. They are downloading things from the App Store. If they're a certain generation, they are doing gaming. They do know what an in-app purchase is. So you want to leverage that knowledge. So here's a couple of examples of things that you could consider doing. The BI and analytics panel was just up here. BI and analytic functions and widgets tend to be specific to users and use cases and the specific needs of users. So if you do a careful segmentation across 100,000 of your mobile native app users, you might be able to come up with some patterns. You might discover that 20% of your users are in a particular type of business and they're a particular type of employee in that business. So you might target them with a set of analytic functions for your app and your cloud backend and sell that at a slightly higher price. Or not sell it at a slightly higher price, just push it out to increase their loyalty. Same thing with understanding what's going on the back end. You can use predictive analytics on your cloud back end to sell specific advertising to your mobile users if you have an advertising model. And you can send specific offers to targeted users as well. So again, the business value for BI and analytics can be delivered in the cloud plus mobile space by moving up this value chain, if you will, for BI and analytics that I have here on the right. Reporting was mentioned in the last panel. What happened? What happened in the past? And how do I query and search on it? Why did it happen is analysis, maybe some visualization. What's happening in real time is monitoring. What's going to happen in the future? Where are my mobile users going to go? What are they going to do when they get there? And therefore why we're collecting all this data and why we don't want the data warehouse to be the dead end of data or the place where data goes to die. We want to amass more and more data and be able to do intelligent things based on that data as vendors. Another area you have to look at in this space, I'm going to try to wrap this up so we can do some questions and discussion, is if I'm going to release a new cloud plus mobile solution, do I need to build everything myself? If I have a SaaS model, how sophisticated do my billing needs and subscription management needs really drive my solution to be? Do I want to create a simple store concept on my own, or do I need like tiered offerings? Do I need to be able to manage the fact that people are paying by credit cards and credit cards expire? Do I need to automatically provision my users after they sign up for a SaaS subscription online? Create them as tenants in my back-end platform. And these kind of requirements drive decisions on make or buy. And there are platforms and tools to help you build out app stores. There are platforms and tools to help you do sophisticated SaaS billing and subscription management. A lot of services can be consumed through cloud APIs, whether that's Google Maps or that's some sort of other mobile back-end service that we're going to talk about in some of these cases. So you need to, as an organization, make your build versus buy decisions. A lot of time this is driven by time to market. Over time, a lot of vendors try to control more and more of the technology stack that they deliver, but on a time to market basis and on a best capabilities basis, there are a lot of trade-off decisions that you need to make in this area to be successful. So I'm going to promise you a quick look at 4 cases of mobile monetization and kind of go through this in about 2 or 3 minutes and leave 5 minutes for questions. Twitterific is a little company. I think they're little. I shouldn't say I know they're little, but they make a native Twitter app. They have 2 versions of it. They have a $3 version, or the light version, that will push ads out to you, and it gives you 1 Twitter account, so you're 1 Twitter user. They have the concept of a professional edition for social media users. These are people that are maybe managing 5 or 10 or 20 Twitter accounts, and they're conducting social media marketing campaigns inside maybe a technology company. And so for $5, one-time charge, $5, you eliminate all the advertising, which is interesting, so that, because you're considered a professional and they don't want to bother you with advertising, but you also get to manage your multiple Twitter accounts. And this is a productivity environment for people who are doing lots of tweets across 5 or 10 accounts. So they're in the iTunes App Store, they're in Google Play, and they do have the concept of an in-app purchase, and you can go from the light edition to the professional edition via in-app purchase. Interesting model, so that's my first case. That's a case of in-app purchase. Case number 2 is kind of one of the most interesting stories that's emerged in Silicon Valley in the last, I'd say, 6 months or so. So Waze is a startup, early stage, very early stage. They're community-based traffic and navigation app, and so they've been giving out a free mobile app for several years. That app encourages users to report information on traffic, gasoline prices, other local conditions. They're up to 40 million users. It's a very sticky application, and the average user is spending, it looks like 8 for almost 10 hours a month in the app. Raised a lot of venture capital, $55 million, and they just started generating revenue through location-based advertising, so they obviously know your location information, and they're going to push out ads to you based on what they know about you. They also have a bid purchase model on the back end for, it's like the pay-per-click advertising model you see with Google or with Yahoo. They're starting to push out real-time gas prices. You can pay for your advertising through credit cards. They're connected to a mobile advertising network. And of course, this company looked very hot at the time when Apple released the version of iPhone with their first effort at Maps, and it was a crash and burn because Apple made a judgment error on what was really required to build accurate, comprehensive mapping. And Waze looked like an approach that Apple could take to use crowdsourcing to gradually increase and deliberately increase the accuracy of their own mapping offering. So the investors in ways that invested in this company are probably all scratching their heads wondering whether or not they should have allowed Apple to buy them and at whatever price was offered. But it's still an independent company. They have less than $10 million in revenue, obviously have a huge valuation already, have raised a lot of money. It's kind of the classic Silicon Valley story. Third case is a new prospect that we've been talking to, and it's an interesting deal flow case, keeping it anonymized, obviously. This is a mobile advertising platform and service. It's based on the idea that people will adopt new platforms like smartphones and Google Glass while they're walking around to look at billboard advertising in cities and potentially be interested in something and use the convenience of Google Glass or the camera on their iPhone or their Android device to actually focus in on an image and then get additional information about the image that they're looking at in the billboard. So this is a company that focuses the Google Glass or the camera on a mask in advertising that they've developed for their clients. And then they're going to get revenue from a number of things. They're going to be digital agencies, so they're going to build these campaigns. They're going to get pay-per-click revenue as well. And they're eventually going to collect a lot of analytic information on these campaigns for individual advertisers and for aggregation. It's a very interesting case. We've seen a couple of different projects related to this kind of mobile advertising innovation model. The last case is more focused on the back end of mobile. This is a company here in the Bay Area, another startup or early stage company, recently raised some money. Mobile back end as a service. This is the idea that to create cloud back ends for this new age of mobile devices, it helps to have something like a specific platform as a service to enable mobile. So this is called StackMob. They quickly looked at the importance of the API model, and they looked at some of the changes in API models that came out of Twitter recently, as well as the fact that Google themselves, although they give you a certain number of API calls for free, you can't call Google's various APIs for free forever. So they decided that they would have a free API calling model and that they would try to monetize by creating a marketplace, and then they would also charge for special features on their platform. So again, this mobile backend as a service is based on very rich REST APIs, building their community in GitHub. GitHub, you can have public communities, you can also have semi-private communities in GitHub, and obviously they're leveraging location awareness. So I kind of wanted to give you, 4 real-world cases of cloud plus mobile monetization to give you a sense of the decisions that you might be looking at if you're trying to price a future mobile offering. What are you going to do? If you're already a SaaS company, or you just make your mobile apps free and help it add value to your SaaS subscription price? Are you going to consider a mobile advertising model? Are you going to look at ways of doing in-app purchases? Are you going to use other location information? So these are all, all options for you at this stage. And we got about 3 or 4 minutes left. I know I promised you a little more, but I would love to get any questions and comments on this topic.
That's pretty clear in B2C that everyone's going mobile first in development. What about B2B, where you see your clients out there? Are they focused on mobile first, or are they taking more hybrid?
Some clients are definitely mobile first, so they have use cases that they've decided are mobile first, and it's not every client, but it's a growing part of the client base, and it's specific use cases where people are walking around. They need to be mobile. Field organizations are mobile. Clinicians in the healthcare space are mobile, so they are starting to target mobile first. It's a great question.
Hi, Russ.
Hey, good to see you again.
What are some guidelines in terms of what you should see in freemium models in terms of the percentage that pay versus not? And obviously it's all over the map, but can you give us some insight into that?
Yeah, I'd love to say I'd done a survey. If I understand your question correctly, it's percentages of freemiums that convert.
Yeah, so they go from the free service to the paid service.
Yeah, I'd say in the B2B space it's higher. I think the numbers in B2C you know, fractions of 1%, and you know, you're getting huge numbers of free distributions out there to either do in-app monetization or some kind of upgrade, like the Twitterific example there. They started with a free version. They sent a free version out probably until they had to cry uncle in terms of cash flow, right? You know, so there are a lot of early stage and startup companies that do that. They try to get a customer base. If they're well funded, they're probably under pressure to monetize. In the B2B space, my perception is that you have typically an inside sales organization model, and you get people on trials in freemium mode, you know, maybe not forever, maybe for a limited period of time, and that the conversion rates there are higher. They have to be higher. And the typical, you know, I guess I'm using freemium and trial somewhat interchangeably there, and maybe they're not exactly interchangeable. But, you know, I don't really have specific numbers. I don't have any data. So I'm really only sharing my impressions, which is a little bit dangerous. But I don't know if that was a very good answer, David.
It's a hard question.
It's a tough question, for one that I didn't necessarily prepare for, but that's my perception. No more, no less.
What is your take on using HTML5 or versus developing the native application for the device?
Well, that's a question I do get a lot. So we definitely see a number of mobile projects which need to be, I'll call it, meet a set of requirements, and meet those requirements which include cross-platform support. And those requirements I would characterize as good enough requirements. We see another set of mobile projects that want to get maximum usability, maximum hardware integration, maximum hardware exploitation, and they really are aiming to be best of breed in the mobile space. So the former, I think, can be implemented in either a mobile enterprise application framework or platform, or as HTML5. There are things about HTML5 only that you have to understand. A native app can, and the drive requirements. So a native app oftentimes will cache a lot of data and can work and be effective disconnected if it's properly designed for that. And we all assume connectivity, but we shouldn't. You know, so you have to go through the requirements, I guess, is my short answer. So to summarize, I would say for the best of breed experience, to really exploit the hardware, to really deliver the most powerful user interface experience, and to really get deeply in the newest technology that's going to be coming out of Samsung and Apple on the hardware side to go along with Android and iOS, you're talking about native. If you're talking about other requirements that could be met connected all the time, or you have cross-platform requirements, and you're just trying to build a specific mobile experience, then you can look at HTML5 approach. You can look at a mobile enterprise application platform so that you don't have to write, you know, 3 native apps, if you will, for 3 different platforms. And that's generally how we see the thing breaking down right now. So we don't want to become religious on the question. We're practical. We allow it to be requirements driven. Out of time. Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe we can follow up after the panel. I'm sorry, ma'am. Okay, thank you.